And as you do this, just noticing the breath without doing anything to the breath in particular, but just noticing the movement of the breath and the body. Just allowing the breath to flow normally as it is. And again, if you're here, you're breathing. And so there's nothing that you have to do. Maybe noticing the expansion on the in-breath, the contraction on the out-breath. How is your breath flowing in this moment? Is it fast? Is it slow? Really feeling, sensing, experiencing the breath, its depth, its shallowness, its lightness. And dwelling on the space in between breaths. And as you turn into your breathing, just noticing what else is here for you right now. Is there tension? Is there tightness? And seeing if you can hold your attention right here in the body. At the same time, just sensing the breath. Expanding your awareness. You might notice that it's easier to hold your breath, to hold your attention on either the breath or the body. And maybe at times you can hold your attention on both. Maybe one is more predominant than the other. Sensations in the body, the sensation of the breath in the body. And then from time to time, just bringing up your attention to your face and noticing the muscles on the face, the jaw. Is there tightness? Is there tension? The teeth. Again, there's nothing that we need to do. Just becoming aware of the tension, the tightness, the coolness, the warmth. And meanwhile, the breath flowing. In the same way that a river flows regardless of all the fish swimming and regardless of all the life in the ocean. In the same way that the river flows, the breath, it just flows. And he touches every single life. And the breath touches every area in the body. And so just allowing your breath to flow naturally. And there are days in which the river flows high and the current is fast and powerful. There's a lot of energy in the river. And in the same way, the breath sometimes goes really fast, really deep. Sometimes it takes a lot of energy to breathe. Sometimes the breath is very energized. But just like in the river, we can't do anything about the currents and its energy. The same with the breath, all we can do is just notice it. And it is difficult to cross a river after a storm. Tide is really hot, really high. The currents are really powerful and they come with a lot of energy. And all we can do is just wait until it comes down. In the same way, we can do the same with our breath. Sometimes it's really fast, very agitated, just like a river, the water flowing, really agitated sometimes. In the same way, There's not much that we can do. Fighting the current in the river will be not to our benefit. And in the same way, fighting the agitation of the breath is not to our benefit. But just noticing it and understanding that it's its nature. And the breath is breathing us. And just like life in the river depends very much on its current for food, for nutrition, nurturing. In the same way, we need the breath. Our cells in the body need the breath. Organs need the breath. And so just for a little while, let's just hang in here with our breath and the life in this body that the breath sustains. Sensing its movement. And the attention is bound to get distracted. The mind is bound to tell stories, take us away in a narrative. Just gently coming right back, bringing the attention right back to this body, breathing. And now expanding your attention, this vast capacity, expanding the container of awareness from being this little targeted beam light resting on the breath, the body. Now expanding it, as we would say, to the landscape. So the body hearing, allowing the attention to also include sound. In the same way that you will look at a landscape before you cross a river, your attention might land just in the river. See if it's okay to cross. Waiting it out, you might notice a landscape around you. In the same way, the body is hearing. So just noticing sound. And as you notice sound, you might notice judgment rising. Sounds that we find unpleasant, and the urge to look for the sounds that are pleasant. And just seeing if we can just stay with sound, just noticing it, whatever it might be, without looking for it, just opening up to what is here in this landscape. And the sounds of life around you. And if you have noise canceling headsets, as most of us do, the silence. There is a certain rhythm in silence sometimes. And just noticing how the body responds to sound. How the breath responds to sound. And as you notice sound, are you also maybe aware of temperature in the body? And if sound is not available right now, is there an urge to look for it? Noticing that and just allowing sound to come to you, allowing whatever is here to come to you, opening up to the landscape, to what's already here. Just allowing whatever is here to show up. Perhaps sensation in your feet, palms of your hands, temperature, pleasant or unpleasant sounds around you. And noticing if there is an inclination for this experience to be anything than what it is. Seeing if you can just be here, right here in the middle of this landscape, within the body, the breath, the sounds. And deeply knowing that awareness is vast. It can hold it all. And now I invite you to expand your awareness beyond the body, beyond sound, beyond distance, into everyone that is here right now at this moment. Tuning into presence, the presence of one another, without the eyes that see, but the heart, allowing the heart to see. And if you notice that the imagination is active, images of who might be here, who might not, narratives, Seeing if you can just tune in to a heartfelt sense or just being here, something bigger than you in this moment. And as we tune in this way to one another, knowing that this something bigger is also within you, knowing how limitless you are, how this awareness can take it all, can hold it all lovingly. And now just coming right back to the breath. And the body. There's a poem called The Sound of Trees by Robert Frost. And he says, I wonder about the trees. Why do we wish to bear forever the noise of this more than another noise, so close to our dwelling place? We suffer them by the day till we lose all measure of pace and fix it in our joys and acquire a listening ear. They are that talks of going but never gets away. And that talks no less for knowing, but it grows wiser and older. And as it grows wiser and older, it knows that now that means to stay. My feet tug at the floor and my head sways to my shoulders sometimes when I watch trees sway from the window or the door. I shall set forth for somewhere. I shall make the reckless choice someday when they are in voice and tossing so as to scare the white clouds over them on. I shall have less to say, but I shall be gone. So maybe just taking a couple of breaths at your own pace, just allowing the eyes to open and just noticing how the body is positioned now and seeing if you can just expand and noticing what it feels like to even bring a smile to the face. Even if you don't feel like smiling, it's not laughter, but just smiling and then just expanding. Yeah, opening up, allowing the heart to see. And so, as we learn a little more and practice about joy, I wanted to share a short story with you. And I shared it before in different contexts because it's one of my most profound stories, I think, in life. And I think it taps so much into joy, even though it doesn't seem like it. But listen attentively for the parts of joy in the story. So, a few years ago, many years ago, I was called on to take care of a person, a really dear person to me who was dying. And when I arrived to this place, he was found really dreading. He was very ill. He had been ill for a while and had lived alone for a while, and so it was very hard for him to, I think, come into terms with what was going on, this illness that was taking his life. And he seemed very much fighting what was happening as is normal. I think we all can relate to that, can we not? Just being in a place of unpleasantness and not wanting it to be there. So we all go through that. And so he was at that stage when I arrived, and he was at pretty much the end of his journey and feeling all the, discomfort of the illness. So we started just having conversations every day and memories and talking about things, and it was very interesting sometimes in the middle of these conversations to see his smile. And it made such a big impact in my life to see this, that in the middle of so much pain and, coming into this scary place in life for some of us, at the end of our lives, not knowing what's going to happen, there was still times in which he smiled. And, we would watch TV and watch his favorite shows and, play music and play games and talk. And there was those moments of joy in there. And I think what happened, what it seems to have happened, it was that at first, it was really the recognition of what was really happening. He was coming to the end of his life and he was suffering deeply. It's just this terrible illness. And eventually, I think there was an acceptance. At least that's what he said. He said, I know where I'm heading. And I think when that happened, I remember having this conversation with him. And I think when that happened, there was a shift into the things that he could not longer control. He's been a really powerful man. And he got to this point of just knowing that maybe this is it. Maybe I just have to let go. And I think when that happened, when there was a sense of acceptance of what was happening, and accepting doesn't mean, again, that it's passive. It's just a recognition that I can't control this. This is what's really happening. And he became joyful. And it was a pleasure to be around him again. And, and everybody could sense around him this joy. He smiled and he had deep gratitude for everybody. And he recognized all the people that were calling him and all the people that had been checking up on him and the people that were surrounding him in this moment. So there was a sense of gratitude as well that I could sense, that I think it's, part of this cultivation of joy, as I was saying last week. And so that was one of the things, but there were other things that I was able to observe. And that's why the theme in this meditation that I just presented to you was an expansion of awareness, expanding the landscape, right? So finding joy again, even though it's difficult, we're not looking for it. But if we expand that awareness, we're able to see. We're able to see what else is here. And that's really what it is. It's not really, I have to find joy here. because joy is going to make me feel better, because it will be developing attachment, right? We will suffer when we're not joyful if that's the case. So it's more about just allowing and opening to what is here. And I use the metaphor of the landscape and the river, because when we do want to cross a river, if that's our intention, is to make it across, and share with you, I grew up in the rainforest of Peru, so these are things that I relate to, and so that's how I teach mainly. But I remember waiting, to cross the river many times, and when we were kids, this was like our entertainment. And if the current was really strong after a storm or something, we just had to wait it out. And I remember we'll just sit around and wait until the river, check every day again. But while we sat around, we could actually open up to the landscape, to what else was there. Even as we were disappointed because we couldn't play in the river and we couldn't cross the river, there was still a lot more. And that's what I wanted to convey to you today. That so when we tap into joy, it's not so much that we are looking for joy. It's not so much that we are desperately looking for a moment to take us away from our unpleasantness and of the moment of our pain, but it's more that we're opening up to see what else is here, right? And now if we talk about mindfulness, and mindfulness being how we relate to life, right? We learn to see our relationship moment to moment to what's around us. How am I relating to noise, what we call noise? How am I relating to what we call, beautiful music, right? How am I relating to the person next to me? How am I relating to everything around me, the temperature, the things that bother me? What's my relationship with life? So we can open up in this way, and it's a way of, opening the heart in a lot of ways, opening to see what else is here. And that was one of the most profound lessons I got from this person, to see what else is here, right? In this moment that is so hard. And it brings me back to, there's a quote I wanted to read you from. Of course, you know me for quoting Mr. Rogers. And and he was, for some of you that might not know, he was the host of a children's show. And he had all these lessons that he taught the children. And one of the things was that he said, there's a quote that says, "When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news." And we can imagine for a child, that's life. It's like, oh, this is a scary place. So he says, "I would see scary things in the news." Rogers said to his television neighbors. "And my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people helping.'" Right? And of course, she's aiming him to look for something, right? But that really could be, and the idea could be to just open up to what else is there. What else is here? What else is in this moment? In this terrible moment when, when we're watching something, we're in the middle of a difficult situation, as we are right now, in a lot of ways still. What else is here, right? And so that's one thing, expanding, gratitude, acceptance. These are things that are conducts of joy, right? That when we actually practice these things, we lower our guard and we open up to joy showing up. So I want to make the clear distinction between looking for joy, right? And opening up to joy. So opening up to joy happens when we practice these things, when we accept things the way they are, when we have gratitude for the moment we're in. Even if it's difficult, there might be some things that we could be grateful for, as I was saying in this case, right, with this person, that he was able to see all the help around him, all the love that surrounded him, right? So here it is, expanding. And one more thing that I wanted to share with you was is also knowing that others are suffering, that we're not alone. So shifting from the perspective of this is happening to me to, wow, it's hard. And I wonder how many other people are going through this, right? And we're lucky in a lot of ways to have this community, right? To have a place where we can come in and share, and we know that we're all suffering about the same things. We're all going through the same things. And this has been one of the gifts to me from the pandemic, is that it's global. We are all going through it. We've all gone through it together. We can relate to one another in a deeper way than if we didn't have it. Yeah, it's taken a lot too. It's taken a lot from us. Friends, people have suffered from this pandemic. But there's also, we expand our awareness, there is also many other things that has brought. At least that's my experience. And maybe the pandemic is not something you can relate to, but maybe there might be other things that I can invite you to look into. And so this common humanity is what we call it in mindfulness. Common humanity is the understanding that I suffer, but others suffer too. We all suffer. It's just a common thing among us. And that relativeness between ourselves and others, right? And so one more thing that I wanted to share is that, so just to illustrate this, a few years back, I had an accident and I was bedridden for a couple of months. And at the beginning, of course, my mind went into fear. What's going to happen? What am I going to do? How am I going to survive this? How am I going to work? The mind just playing tricks constantly. There was a moment in which, this shifted. And this is that common humanity. There was a moment in which I remembered somebody that I had grown up with who had this tragic accident and ended up paralyzed from the waist down. And just seeing her strength and how she went about life and acknowledging how difficult it is to move. It shifted my perspective from me and what happens to me, myself, and I, to what she might have gone through, right? And I started to realize, wow, must have been so hard for her. So I'm not minimizing how I felt. I'm simply expanding into other people's also suffering at that moment. And that in itself allowed me to open to joy in some ways. I was able to now see more clearly all the benefits that I had. That first of all, I was going to recover at some point. I was going to be okay. And even if I wasn't, I had support. I had people around me. And even if I didn't have that, I focused on the things that I could do, just like she did. Her upper body became her strength. She sang, she played the guitar. She was the life of the party. She was able to do that. She was able to focus on what she had. So again, this sense again of being able to expand and being able to see what's past it and being able to not just think of things as happening to us, but understanding that this happens to everybody. The suffering is just part of life, that the body will get sick and deteriorate and, things will happen. Life happens, right? So, I don't know, that's just, I think that's something that I wanted to share with you today and really just hopefully it brings some clarity to the subject of joy, that sometimes it could be very, very much overemphasize as something that we need to have, that, I must be joyful for what I have. I must be grateful. It's not really the must. It's the tender openness to it. Tender openness to it. And just, if there's something that I can just leave you with is, think of it as sitting, looking at a landscape, trying to cross that river, and all your attention is in the current. And then you step back and you're able to see the trees, you're able to see the sky, you're able to see the wildlife maybe. That's kind of what we're doing moment to moment when we're practicing joy. moment to moment, just opening up and seeing what else is here. And if you don't find anything in a particular moment, that's okay. Just knowing that you have that awareness to actually expand and look. So the practice that I just shared with you right now is a practice to condition the mind to actually do that, to condition the mind to see past it, to expand and to hold it in that way, in a tender way. So I think I would stop talking now. And I'd love to hear from you. I want to thank you, first of all, for just listening and for your kindness and for being here and for all the support that you give me and give everyone that's here. So thank you so much.